Republic, and I know you are too. I will never give up. We can never give up.
Patriots, stand with us and fight for freedom. Fight for our Constitution. Fight with us for the rights endowed by our Creator. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Fight for a better future. We're going to keep fighting. We will not stop until we get to the bottom of this.
Keeping our republic is on the line, and it requires patriots with great passion, dedication, and eternal vigilance to preserve our freedoms. Jenny Beth Martin is the co-founder of Tea Party Patriots. She is an author, a filmmaker, and one of Time Magazine's most influential people in the world. But the title she is most proud of is mom to her boy-girl twins.
To be a terrorist who entered the border and was kind of taunting the journalist who was recording him. We look at what happened yesterday related to Iran, and we have 3 United States military members who have been killed from Iran. This is just an escalation of what happened on October 7th in Israel when it comes to Iran. President Trump is being persecuted. They're trying to destroy his livelihood and put him in prison. The federal government is being weaponized against people who are my dear friends, like David Schaefer, Mark Meadows, and Mike Roman. The problems just go on and on. There is so much at stake right now. We, you, the leaders in your counties, feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. You feel like every problem we have, everything I just listed in the laundry list that keeps on going, needs to be solved right this minute. It needs to be solved yesterday. But we're not quite able to do that yet. We know we must save America, but we're not able to do it because, as the song from Hamilton, the musical goes, we don't have the votes to pass the legislation, and we sure as heck don't have a conservative in the White House to sign legislation into law. To be at a point where we can truly solve the problems that are facing us, to get the legislation passed that we want to see passed, we have to secure and win. Secure elections so we can have faith in the outcome of those elections. Win elections so we have the chance to pass legislation that we care about. Secure and win. That's the mantra for Tea Party Patriots Action for 2024. We'll talk about election security more tomorrow, and you're going to hear more about it today as well here at this summit. For right now, we're going to talk about winning. And to win elections, we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and get back to basics. And when it comes to basics in winning elections, we have to do voter ID and getting out the vote. So right now I want to ask you, when you're thinking about voter ID and what you do locally to get out the vote, name a few of the activities that you do for getting out the vote. Knocking doors, phone calls, texts, postcards, voter registration, providing transportation, talking to people about it. All right, now when you go door knocking, when you do the phone calls, when you send the text messages, who are you sending those to? To voters. And where do you get that information? The party. So it's list of voters. It's modeled data. It's data. You're talking to strangers, right? Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about what's called relational organizing. And to get us started on that, it's a little bit different than talking to strangers and people we don't know. I'm going to have Jeff Davis, who is my colleague and who works with me at Tea Party Patriots Action, explain to you what relational organizing is and a little bit about what he did in Illinois a few years ago. As he begins doing that, Megan and Linda are going to hand a handout to you. You don't have to write down everything on the screen because it's going to be written down on this handout and a couple more we give. And Jeff has been working on elections really since he was in college and out of college.
So that's a long time. Can you hear me?
All right, so they're passing around this flyer on relational organizing. And what we mean by relational organizing, at its core, it's building relationships with the people we know. It is friends and family program. So in the 90s, when we were running campaigns, especially like smaller primary races, we had what we called friends and family coordinators. So a whole thing. We basically do a spreadsheet on one piece of paper, or just use a lined piece of paper and say, write down your friends and family, write up 20 people, whether it be your neighbors, your family, your friends, give us their address, give us their landline, because cell phones didn't exist, and we need their real address because we don't have email addresses. So we'd have someone take 20 people, and we'd say, you're responsible for getting those people to turn out. So you're a friends and family coordinator. Those 20 people, the campaign shouldn't have to worry about it. We shouldn't have to have people call them. We take them off of the other parts of the campaign, so that we knew that was who was going to turn those people out. So what has happened over the course of today, Democrats have decided to take that program and try and make it better. Just like Elon Musk said, you shouldn't do things differently just because they're different. They need to be better. So what today allows us to do is to take that program and build it over a tech stack that allows us to scale it, so it's not just small elections. So you're taking people to contact 20 people. We can now raise that bar to 50 people, and we can give some examples. Jenny Beth's going to talk about some of the programs the Democrats have been doing for now 3 or 4 cycles, and Republicans don't use this action.
Okay, so what you guys told me is that when you're getting out the vote, you're going and knocking on doors, and you're talking to voters who you have a list to talk to, and you're talking to strangers. But right now, today, the way so many people communicate, they text message, and one of you mentioned text messaging, or a couple of you did. I bet some of you right now are texting someone else who's sitting in the room, kind of like the people on this slide are texting one another rather than talking to one another. But they're talking to people who they know, and when you're texting, you're talking to people that you know. Relational organizing is about relationships and about people you know. So what happened in 2020 and at the end of 2021 in Georgia with Senator Jon Ossoff. He wasn't senator then, he was candidate Jon Ossoff. At the end of 2020 in Georgia, we were worried to death about what just happened on the election and wanted to make sure that the results of the election that were certified were the correct results of the election. And that was going on in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Nevada and Arizona as well, and Michigan. But we also had in Georgia a runoff election, and for both of our United States senators, because there was a vacancy, so we had both senators on the ballot. Jon Ossoff's campaign was not worried about what had just happened. He was worried about winning. And they actually modernized the vote. And when I read about what they did in October of 2022, I realized we were in trouble. I knew we were not going to have the kind of results in November that everyone was saying we were going to have based on the polling. Because what they did was, frankly, I think, brilliant in the way that they modernized the vote. They had people, and I forgot to bring my phone out here with me, but they had people take their phone and load the contacts from their phone to the campaign. And then the campaign took all those lists of voters we were just talking about, meshed them together, and sent the results back to each person of the people from the targeted voter list that the campaign had, of just the people they knew, their friends and family. So they reached out to them, and everyone had to do 3 things as they reached out to them. It is not just a matter of having the ability to do that, but it's what you do with it once you have it. They reached out and they would have conversations. Who are you going to vote for? How do you feel about the issues? And they would talk to their friends and family. And the campaign didn't have them talking through an app. They did it just through your own cell phone messaging app, iMessages or whatever Android uses to text, because you know how to talk to your friends and family. They're your friends and family. So they agree they're going to vote for you, and then the person would go tell the campaign, here's a voter I've identified. Then the next thing they had to do was ask, what is your plan to vote? Do you plan to vote early, in person? Do you plan to vote by mail or absentee? Or do you plan to vote on election day? And then once they had the plan, they sent that to the campaign. Then when absentee ballots went out and early voting started, they had the list back and they could see at the top of the list the absentee voters and also the people who said they were going to vote early. And they went to those people every day saying, have you voted yet? Did you get your ballot? Have you turned your ballot in? Hey, did you vote early? The polls open. Here's a list and the time and where you can go to early vote. And then the next day, the campaign would refresh it based on the information from the Secretary of State's office of who voted and drop the names of the people who voted, so their list kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. They were chasing ballots using relational organizing.
And what they were doing was taking their resources by taking people off the list during that election season. So if someone voted by vote by mail today, tomorrow, they're no longer on that list. So no one's wasting energy, no one's wasting opportunity because they already know, they've already voted. So really making it an effective way, and they had built a whole structure to monitor as people voted and you as a community organizer, what your list looked like. So I could be in a campaign office, I could look at your list and say, oh my gosh, you have way too many people that still need to vote and you don't have a plan for them, and they could come in and help you do that.
And they documented it all, and frankly they should have. They should be proud of what they did, because what they did is rather amazing and my hat goes off to them. So they wound up winning the election. They won the election by 1.2%. Warnock won by 2.1%. They increased the turnout by 3.8%. And unfortunately, this was in Politico in April of 2022, but I didn't read it until October of 2022. So here are some things we learned about the Ossoff campaign. Don't worry, you don't have to write this down, because Megan and Linda are going to give you another handout, and that has all of this written down. So just listen to me and pass it down, but keep listening. And there are a few more things I'm going to go over that are on the handout they're about to give out to you, and you don't have to take notes because it'll be on the handout. The Ossoff campaign had 2,888 people who were community mobilizers. Those were paid organizers, people who were paid to upload the contacts and get them to vote. They also had a whole set of volunteers working on it as well. They did not abandon door-to-door or regular phone banking or mail or ads. This is in addition to all of that. But when you're talking about winning elections by 10,000 votes or 12,000 votes or 15,000 votes, you have to try everything to get those votes out. The average mobilizer contacted 61 voters each. The increase was 3.8%. They targeted they were able to contact about 160,000 voters. And again, I mentioned the numbers he won by. Now, let me tell you a couple more things. And this is on your list. They're not the first ones to do it. In Hampton Roads, Virginia in 2021, I think it's called the Progressive Outreach Project, reached out to voters using relational organizing, and they increased turnout by 9.2%. The Senator Ed Markey campaign in 2018 had volunteers doing this, and they noted that if a volunteer only knows 20 people, so the Ossoff campaign was averaging 60-something, but if you only know 20, if you know 20 people, you are the best person to contact those 20 people and to talk to them. You're the person who can be the most persuasive with them. 2018 also, the Kolkari campaign worked with volunteers, and they did it the old-fashioned way, the way that Jeff was talking about. They had 3 ring binders of all the voters, 1 per precinct, and every event they go to, they'd put all the binders out and ask people to write their name by the people who they were going to get the vote out for. And then the Mondaire Jones campaign in 2020 did friend banking. So we've heard of phone banking. They did friend banking, and they did it online because it was 2020. But we could do this in person, so have people go to your headquarters, and instead of making phone calls, they're doing relational outreach to people who they know, but they're doing it together as a group. The lessons that we've learned from this, and again, this is all on your handout. It was way too much to put on a slide for you to look at. The increased turnout from 3.8 to 9.2%, even at the very lowest, let's say it was 3.5%, that could still make a difference. It would have made a difference in Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia in 2020 for Trump. Even if you only know 20 people, that volunteer is the best suited to reach 20 people. It can be digital and sophisticated like apps, or it can be printouts in an old-fashioned pen and paper way. Training is necessary for volunteers. Working together with volunteers is important. They had to get started early. Late would be considered about 2 months out, so they had to get started really early. And they realized that it's an exponential growth. So it starts slowly, but then at the very end, it jumps really, really fast. That means you've got to be prepared early for a massive increase in volunteers later in the year. And then there are more things on here, but the thing that I want to tell you and focus on next is that in October 2022, we were working on poll watchers with Tea Party Patriots Action. So we continued doing that. But afterwards, Jeff and I read hundreds and hundreds of sheets of paper about what the left did, all of these campaigns on relational organizing. And we realized that the left had 4 apps to do all of this. Guess how many we had on our side? That's right. So I happened to be at an event about a year ago, maybe 11 months ago, where Tyler Boyer and I were on a presentation together, and before and after we were talking, we need this, we need that, we need an app, we need this, have you heard about relational organizing? And I told him we were building an app, and he said, we're already building an app, you don't need to build an app, join us. So that was a Saturday. On Wednesday afternoon, Jeff and I were in Phoenix meeting with Tyler and the Superfeed team. And Jeff, just tell a little bit about what we've come up with.
So you'll see on the relational, on this flyer that was sent out, kind of some screenshots, and Superfeed's going to be presenting tomorrow, so they'll have the most updated information, so you should come back to that. But basically, it's how you upload your contacts to match the voter list. It'll happen right in the app. It'll be the Turning Point app, the Tea Party Patriots, the Patriot Project app, because we're all working together. One of the biggest things that we're trying to do is make sure that we concise our resources so that we don't have 10 people going to one door, that people understand who's doing what. So this allows us to be able to match those people to the voter list, and then during the, I call it election season now, from vote by mail request to election day, those will be updated daily. The back end data, so you'll know what stage your contacts are in, so you'll know, oh, they've already requested the vote by mail, so I really need to call them to make sure that when they're going to get it, that they return it and that they're, you know, on par, and make sure we know the different candidates. Everyone in here, I'm sure, has people that call them and say, okay, I'm going to vote tomorrow. Who am I voting for? That's the kind of thing that you can do through this app, through technology. Okay, and you'll have Superfeed presenting tomorrow, and they'll go through a lot more of this, and we'll be able to show you more of it as you download our app. So let's talk about what can activists, a general act, we're going to break up the next part of this presentation into 2. So we're going to talk about what the general activist, your regular volunteer, can do to relational organize. Then we're going to talk about what you can do, because you're in a different position than the general activist. You're a leader. So a general activist, if you were to hand out that first sheet that Megan and
Linda gave to you, the one that looks like this, and say, hey, we're going to work on relational organizing. Let me tell you a little bit about it. They're going to say, well, what can we do right now to get started? So here are some things they can do right now to get started, whether they have an app or not. They have to have relationships with people. So if they don't know their neighbors on their street, tell them to go door knock and get to know their neighbors. Build relationships and make sure when they're doing that they're getting cell phone numbers so they can stay in touch and continue to communicate with them. You have to build relationships, and you have to have relationships for relational organizing to work. You want them to be seen as an expert on issues and candidates with their friends and family. So you'll need to be equipping them to be able to understand how to solve the problems and the way to talk about the issues so they can be persuasive and be seen as an expert. We need them to recruit and train more volunteers, because this is only going to work. The more volunteers we have, the more effective we will be. If they have friends of people who they don't know, and they're in the, let's say they know someone from Sunday school class or from the Junior Service League or whatever it might be, but they don't have their cell phone number and it's not in their phone, they need to start like, oh, hey, Jeff, we're in Sunday school together. Hey, you're right, I care about the country the same way you do. Hey, can I get your cell phone number so I can stay in touch? They need to be building their cell phone list now so they can stay in touch with people. And then the last thing that they can do is host a house party or a neighborhood party. And we've got a book, if you go over to our booth, which you can find, it says Patriot Project. It also says Tea Party Patriots Action, but it says the Patriot Project. So find that booth. We've got this little book. You can take some of these. We can get more for you to give to people to show them how to do a house party, how to do a meet and greet that teaches people about what's going on in the country, and also recruits them and asks them to sign up to be volunteers. And we have this set up. It is literally, there is text in it so they can copy and paste the text to send the email to invite people. It's very, very simple for them to use. Lots of checklists, makes it very simple.
It's very comprehensive. You can just follow the how-to guide, and you can set up these neighborhood parties, house parties. It's, you know, we're talking about 30 to 50 people that you can just knock off in a night and then get them involved.
Okay, so the next part is what can you do as a leader? Because as a leader, you have different responsibilities. You're not just going to be activating. I mean, you're not just going to be the person who's talking to your friends and family. You've got to recruit people. You've got to train them. You've got to fundraise. You have a massive amount of things to do. Well, I think that the most important thing that we can talk about is that you've got to create a plan, and you have to be prepared. And if we fail to prepare, we are preparing to fail, which is what Benjamin Franklin said. So you got to start out knowing, what is your vote goal? How many volunteers do you need to recruit? How many election integrity people do you need to have? How many people are going to be the super volunteer in your group? You know who they are. 80% of the people volunteer. 20% of the people do everything. So, you know, I mean, yeah, you know, that's every group I've ever been in, that is the way it goes. So, but the 80%, if they put a bumper sticker on their car, they show up at an event or whatever else it may be that they're doing, it's vitally important. Like if you do an event and it's an empty room with just a 20%, that's not good. You want everyone there. So everyone has a role, but some people are the super volunteers. Okay, so do you know what your goals are for your county? Do you know what your vote goal is? I didn't think so. So Jeff helped us come up with that, and Megan and Linda are going to pass that out now for you.
So we had the list, we got the list of the counties that were going to be here today. So we use those on the list, so everyone has from the county, from the list that we had. So we put goals, and I'll talk through about the data. If you're not on this list, we can do this for you as well. And as we go through some of these numbers, some of them are kind of crazy, overwhelming. You just wonder, but we have a method to our madness. And, you know, it's really, today it's data modeling that goes into it, and trying to figure out, there's a turnout universe, that's your low propensity voters who tend to be on the right side or conservative. And then there's also your 4-4 voters that are your voters, consistent conservatives. 4-4 voter can't be 29 years old or 24 years old. They can't be 4-4 because they don't have enough elections. But that doesn't mean there's not a 24-year-old that's a hard conservative. So we've modeled this data, and we've done it by county, and we've gone through, and I'll just run through the columns real quick and then go through it. We've got the state, the county. We put the 2020 Trump vote count. We put a 2024 vote goal, a targeted GOTV voters. So that's what we have modeled to be low propensity voters who tend to be conservative, that should be good for our universe. A recruitment universe, that's again modeled consistent conservatives, and then we did vote goals, relational, election security, team leaders, that 20% that she talked about, and then we have the numbers of precincts in each county, which we believe are true, but can be going through. So
let me, I'm going to take Cobb County as an example. Is Sally in here anywhere? Okay, good. Sally's seen these numbers, so I don't think she'll mind if I point them out to you, because I made sure that we were on the right track back in October, trying to figure out what do people need so they're organized and ready for the fall. She had a vote count in her county, Cobb County, Georgia, of 165,436 voters. Her vote goal, we're saying the vote goal should be 166,363. That may change by the time we get to August, but for right now, that's where it is. It could change based on voter registration and people who are moving in and out of the county. She has a targeted list of voters of about 54,000, and then her recruitment universe is about 16,000 people. That's a lot of people who are consistently voting conservative in her county. Well, her goal of the number of people she needs to recruit to volunteer and actually do something is 3,200 people. She needs about 10,080, almost, not 1,000, 100. She needs about 1,100 relational organizers, what we're calling Patriot champions. We estimate she's going to need at least 225 people to work on election security, and she'll probably have about 258 people who are our team leaders and those super volunteers. And then each of you have that. So you're looking at that and you're probably going, oh my gosh, these goals are overwhelming. How in the world am I going to accomplish this? Let's take a moment and break it down. First, the recruitment pool for most of you is very large. Now, it may not be as large as what you need. You may look at it and go, there's no way I can get this many people. But there are going to be people, and I will use Georgia as an example, because we have so many counties. There are going to be counties where there will be more volunteers than work to do in that county. Now, they may not be in the metro areas, but they're going to be in the state. So we're going to have to make sure that they know that if they have extra volunteers to help fill the positions in the bigger counties that may be leaning a bit more to the left than to the right. Some people will step up automatically in September and October. If you've not been a chairman and you've not been a leader during a presidential election year, and not 2020 because nothing about 2020 was right, but 2016 or 2012 or any of the other years, you know that the volunteer recruitment pool spikes in September and October. But if you haven't been here yet to do that, you may not realize that. Some of these people, a lot of the people have never been asked to volunteer, but they would if you asked or you gave them something to do. Newton's first law of physics is inertia. It's really simple. A body at rest stays at rest. A body in motion stays in motion, but that's not my phone. I'm like replying. It's a little hard. I gotta act. A body at rest tends to stay at rest. A body in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an external force. If you're trying to push a boulder downhill and it's sitting still, it's really hard to do. Like, you've got to get it moving. It's not going to move by itself. You've got to push it. But once it starts moving, it starts going by itself much faster. All of you right now, we're in the moving that boulder stage, getting it moving. It's hard work, but once it starts going, it becomes a lot easier. You've got 40 weeks until Election Day, 280 days. You've got time. Let me go back to that. I sped through it and you got your, it's not a lot of time, but you have time. You've less than a year, but you've got 40 weeks. Do you know what you're doing in each of those weeks yet? Do you have a plan? Don't worry, I have an answer for it. Or the beginning of it, and this whole summit has answers for you. The people who are crazy enough to change the world and to think they're crazy, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. I'm crazy. We're going to change the world. We're going to save our country. So how do we get there? I don't know if they're laughing because I'm crazy or because we're saving the world or both. But either way, I'm okay with that. Okay, so you've got to prepare. And we've got a tool to do that. We have this over at our booth. We're not giving this out to you right now, but you can pick it up from our booth, okay? So we've got a little guidebook to get you started. I want you to come by and get it at lunch because I think it will help you thinking about the next presentations and the kind of things you want to be figuring out during the next presentations today and tomorrow. But you've got to assess where you are right now. In this first phase, it really comes down to assessing where you are, creating a plan, recruiting and training people. You have to look at your current organizational structure and document where you are. So you've got a list of everything you need to reference. And here are things you need to think about. You have a list of all of these easily available. The voting precincts and their locations and their addresses, the early voting locations and the addresses, all of the subdivisions or HOAs in your county, all of the apartment complexes in your county. What about churches, synagogues, places of worship, nursing homes and assisted living facilities, high schools, colleges, community and civic organizations, regular community events like fairs, concerts, whatever it is that's regular that happens in your area where you may want to show up and table, media contacts, and a list of every intersection where you're going to want to sign in October and November, and if you're in Virginia in September. Who in your county is a primary contact for each of these different places? Do you have that? It's okay if you don't, but that's what you've got to start thinking about, and we're going to help you with this. That's what assessing and planning right now is. And the list of this goes on and on, so I don't want to completely overwhelm you with that. But we also have a place for you to start thinking about how you're going to structure and organize the information, and we've got lots of blanks for you to fill out. But honestly, each one of these probably turns into a single page. I've done this. This isn't new. This is an adaptation of what I did and what Jeff did in previous campaigns. I was the county campaign chairman for Bush in 2004 in Cherokee County, Georgia, and I had a document just like this, and I filled it all out. And our county was so organized that I was able to go to Florida for the last 3 weeks of the election and help get out the vote in Florida because it was a swing state at the time. Recruiting and training. You want to start recruiting as many people as you can. Even though you still have a lot of planning to do, you've got to begin recruiting and training people because there are a lot of people you've got to be able to plug in. And we'll help with that. I mentioned the house party guide. We also have another tool that maybe I should hold off and explain, but you're going to have to recruit people. I'll tell you what the other tool is in just a minute. And then you've got to also begin recruiting and training poll watchers and poll workers. Now, I know we're going to be going into that later, but I just want to plant that seed now that you need to do that. When it comes to assisted living and nursing homes, you also need to have a single person from your county who is going to be a liaison to help with election integrity related to nursing homes and assisted living facilities. And I highly recommend that you work with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West's organization, American Constitutional Rights Union, not to be confused with the ACLU, it's the ACRU. And they have a website, vulnerablevoters.com, I think is the site. It's written down on one of the pages for you. Okay, now, that whole document that I just went through, we also have a template in a spreadsheet. It's hard to see that. It doesn't matter exactly what it says. We have a template. So when you come see us and pick this up, we'll give you the template for your county so you can start filling it out and getting organized. Then we have another tool available for you. Alan Fuller, I'm not sure if he's in here right now. He's part of our team. Oh, he's way in the back, right back there. He's created, Jeff and Alan and I were sitting there and I was going, I want to be able to give party leaders, not party leaders, but county leaders. They could be in the party or they could be Tea Party Patriots leaders. I wanted to give them a guide of everything they need to do and list all their goals and be prepared. And Alan talked about what he'd done in Colorado. Jeff talked about what he'd done in Illinois. And Alan went and created this web portal so you can look at your own county and also the breakdown of different information about the voters in your county by precinct. And we can give you access to that as well. And then when you're recruiting people, we've got a tool to help you with that. Remember how I said people need to be experts on the issues so they know how to talk about the issues? Well, we're rolling out a new thing this year called a meeting in a box. And I'm going to quickly show you what's in that. It won't take very long. But we've got all these materials, and we can ship these to you. Don't worry, you don't have to carry this with you back in your carry-on luggage. But we have something that explains everything in the box. We have a call to action sheet that you can give out after presenting the information at your meeting. This one happens to be on the movie about child trafficking. God's Children Are Not for Sale is the theme of it, and how can we protect people who are falling victims of human trafficking and child trafficking. We have an entire workbook on it to help educate people about it. And then we have a PowerPoint presentation. You don't have to memorize all this or get a volunteer who can present it at your meeting. They can quickly go through the slideshow and then at the end do the call to action. And right now the call to action is we've got to have new legislation, but to get new legislation we've got to secure and win. So all of the calls to action right now are recruitment calls to action so we can secure and win.
So the meeting in a box is so good for especially county leaders when you're looking for, everyone's been to meetings every month and you have your elected officials speak and you have maybe your candidates speak, but you don't really have a program to help educate and help, expand that base, allowing those people to become experts in different issues so that they can be leaders in their own precinct. This box helps that. We're going to have different themes every month. This one was based on the movie. We're going to have an election integrity one. We're going to have one on supporting and saving the Supreme Court. We have a bunch of different issues, but they'll basically be one a month for the whole year. And if you want to come by our booth and say, yeah, I want to do that, we will send the stuff out to you every month so you can have it. You can have it part of your meeting. You can make a special meeting for it. You can integrate it into your recruitment stuff. It's wonderful stuff.
We're doing two versions of the PowerPoint slide because you're probably going, well, we have to have elected officials and we have to have candidates and we have so many things on our program every single month. So we have a long one in case you don't have anything else planned for your program. We also have like a 10-minute version or an 8-minute version of the PowerPoint that quickly highlights the problem, the solution, and then urges people to sign up to secure elections or win elections. So we've got both versions available because we know depending on where you are in any given month or with your meeting, you may need one version or the other. Okay, now, as we close out, I want to say this. In December, America celebrated our 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party. And Tea Party Patriots Action had this great commemorative video about it. We're so thankful for our founding fathers and for Samuel Adams. We wouldn't be here today as a country without them, and our organization would not be here because we would not have followed their example had they not taken action when they did. So many people are sick and tired and worried. They're worried sick about the future of our country. And who can blame them? The world is practically on fire, open borders, potentially facing a world war, persecution of President Trump, weaponization of government against citizens, indoctrination in schools, on and on and on and on. Some people are comparing where we are right now today in America to where we were in 1776. I don't tend to go there, and here's why. After the Boston Tea Party and after the Revolutionary War, which is what 1776 is about, our founders wrote the Constitution, and they created a new form of government that empowered people, protected rights, limited government, and respected liberty. When Benjamin Franklin was asked at the end of the Constitutional Convention what kind of government they were giving, his reply, as we all famously know, was a republic if you can keep it. An answer, a republic, a representative democracy or a constitutional republic, not a pure republic, if you can keep it. And the challenge was to the people he was talking to and to every generation of Americans between then and now today. And we've kept it all this time. In 1776, our founders did not have a representative democracy. They were ruled by a king with little means to push back against his tyrannical will, except for military force action. They knew the dangers of consolidated power. They risked everything for liberty. They understood the nature of man, and they lived under tyranny. So after the war, they wrote this Constitution. And the Constitution has checks and balances all in it, up and down, side to side. The three branches of government are what we think of most often. But there are also checks and balances with the local, state, and federal governments. And there is a check and balance that each citizen in the entire country has, because each citizen gets to cast a vote to change how we are ruled in this country. And we can overturn our government every 2 years peacefully through the electoral process, which our founding fathers in 1776 could not do. Now, today's government is absolutely being wielded against us like a nuclear warhead. And this is no time for meaningless action. For meaningless talk. It is time for action. It is time for courage. It is time for tireless dedication to the cause of American greatness. It will take every single one of us who loves this country, from the elected officials to the leaders in the counties, to the average volunteer and the average voter, to understand what is happening and to exercise that check and balance so we can right what is going on in our country today. And take note, all of you who are distressed and worried about this country, we all love this country and cherish it so much. You wouldn't be here if you did not. You are not alone. Liberty will not die on our watch. We will never give in. We will never stop fighting. Our children and our grandchildren are depending on us to dig deep, to be brave, and to trust in God. They are expecting us to protect them from those who wish to corrupt their hearts and minds. They expect us to secure our elections so that they still matter. And we will, and we must for our children, secure the blessings of liberty for their generation. We will succeed, and we will win, and you will win in your counties and states as well. And Tea Party Patriots Action is here to help you do that and to do everything we can to save America. Thank you so much. God bless every one of you.
Don't forget to come by and see us at our table. We got plenty of stuff for you. We really want to help. We don't want this to be at the end. We want this to be the beginning of our relationship. We have a lot of people from our team here. Happy to help.
Thank you so much.
How's it going, folks? What a morning, huh? What a morning. My name's Brett Galashewski. I'm the Enterprise Director for the Legacy Field Program at Turning Point Action. Appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. We do have lunch for you guys. It's in the mezzanine, so that same place where we went to check in this morning. So we'll have each and every one of you hop out of here, grab lunch, and come back in here, and we'll have America First Works present to us on the great stuff that they have going on. But before we do that, I want you guys to give yourselves a round of applause. You guys are the difference makers. This is the group that's going to save our republic. There is a difference between those county chairs and those activist leaders who say that they want to change the game and then those who actually do something about it. Thank you guys so much for the effort that you are putting forth in your counties. Remember this when you go back home and you game plan for 2024 and beyond. Thank you guys. Go get lunch and we'll come back in a couple minutes.
Real quick, guys. Real quick. Before everybody goes to lunch, real quick. If you want to grab lunch, eat, we're going to have our great friends at America First Works in here at noon, right? So you can bring your box lunch in here. You can do it, but you've got to know what America First Works is doing. So start the discussion, grab lunch, but we'd love for you to bring it back in here so we can eat and see everything going. Thank you, guys.
champagne, pop. It's my house, come on, turn it up. Hear a knock on the door.
starting to have the conversation throughout the rest of today. We did this with now Tea Party Patriots. We're going to have a series of, again, these outside organizations, and we're going to talk a lot more about outside organizations, outside infrastructure, why it matters, why it's important. Because there are resources in organizations